This is awful.
I'm so sorry, Chloe. I'm really sorry. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm not gonna bullshit and pretend I know what to say. I loved Adam, even after everything. I'm so sorry, Chloe. This is fucking awful.
Thank you.
Okay. I got here as soon as I could. The police said Ethan needs to be with me.
Yeah, the detectives told me that too.
Is he here, or can I? Is he in his room, or?
Come in. He's,
Wow, Chloe. Jesus, it's enormous.
he's not here right now. He'll be back soon, I'm sure. Oh, hey. Hi.
Hey, baby.
Hi.
Oh my God, looks just like Granddad.
Hey, sweetie.
You are tall as a tree. Oh my God, you're so grown up. How you holding up?
Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm still Mandy.
Woo! Today we are covering Prime Video's new show, The Better Sister, Season 1, Episode 1, titled She's My Sister. Please note this is a spoiler-filled podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, come back and check us out after you finished watching. So when Mandy and I decided to cover this show, we did not know that all of the episodes were going to be released at once. So this is new territory for us. So we're going to cover this episode, the first episode with this podcast, but we are probably going to cover 2 at a time going forward because of the way the story moves. So we'll see how that goes, but
let's take a pause here, Becky, and be real honest that part of that is also because this is a real test of both of our patience. Like, if we had realized that this was going to be all dropped at once and how incredibly suspenseful this was, we're like cats. We're nosy. We can't be having the truth out there and just waiting 10 weeks to go and figure out what's going on when we could. So this is going to be tough enough for us. Like Elizabeth Banks' character in the show, we are recovering nosy addicts.
Yes.
And so we can only take so much.
And we will binge. If y'all think we will not binge a TV show, you don't know us. So,
but we're not. We are holding each other accountable, and we're not binging this one ahead of where we're about to, the week that we're going to watch the week that we're recording. But it's tough, man.
It is very hard. We all know patience isn't my strong suit, so I'm learning.
Yeah, same. It would be good for us. We'll just go rifle through the proverbial pill cabinet of the internet and stay away from the tempting ones.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'll go ahead and say it now. When we get to show notes and news, I Googled show news and it was like the ending of The Better Sister.
Right.
And I was like,
that's the problem.
So there will not be show notes and news probably until we get to the end of the series. So
yeah, Becky hates a spoiler.
I do. I did watch. You will be proud of me. I did watch the coming up this season on. So I'm very excited to see Gloria Reuben, who starred in ER. Anyway.
Gloria Reuben's on it? I didn't even notice that.
It looks like she's going to be Ethan's attorney.
That was Gloria Reuben.
Yes, I'm
pretty.
super, super excited about that.
I didn't even recognize that because I expected her, because Gloria Reuben's older than us. And that woman, like, I remember just in the real short clip, I was like, just randomly registering. What a pretty lady. Like, she was all together and attractive like that. I thought that one was 20 years younger than us.
Well, she looks 20 years younger than
Yeah.
us.
Better skincare.
Haggard.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get into the episode, I'd like to just take a minute and get to know some of the main people in the cast, starting with the amazing Elizabeth Banks playing Nikki McIntosh. I love her best as Effie Trinket in the Hunger Games franchise, but Mandy pointed out when we jumped on the Zoom today that she starred and directed in the Pitch Perfect series and reminded me that she was the amazing Sal who had a son and chose to Winky Fingers raise her son gay from the great TV show Modern Family.
That is my favorite role of her. She's done so many amazing things, and she's a really strong role model for women in the industry. She's not, I don't really get into celebrity cults a whole lot, but every time I hear that woman talk, I love everything she has to say about raising up other women and looking for opportunities to advance them and protect them in the industry. So yeah, that's part of why I wanted to watch this show. Normally it'd be a little too stressful for me, but I'll watch almost anything that lady does.
Have you watched her host what's the
Password?
No, no whammies.
Oh, is she doing Pressure Lock now?
Yeah, and she's so good.
I have seen
it. She makes it so fun.
Yeah, she is funny. I think I saw like 1 or 2 episodes when it first came out, but now that you've told me that, and a few shows that I do watch are all on summer hiatus, that's a good one for me to go back and revisit. We also have the really amazingly talented Jessica Biel, just stunningly beautiful woman. There's no angle on her face that isn't just absolutely incredibly beautiful, but more importantly than that, she's also incredibly talented, and she plays Chloe Taylor. You might know her from the TV shows Candy and The Sinner that came out within the last couple of years.
And I want to give her credit. She wrote, produced, and assisted in directing the season of The Sinner that she was the focal point.
Really?
Yeah.
I never watched it, but I saw that's one after I watched this. That's another thing I might go back and do this summer because I remember seeing the previews for it and thinking that it looked very good.
Yeah, that's where I was like, okay, Jessica Biel. And then I watched Candy and I was like, this girl's got some serious talent. So when you proposed us covering this show, I was not mad. So next up, we have Corey Stoll, who plays Adam McIntosh, and I remember him best in House of Cards. I don't know if you recognized him from anything else, but that's where he stood out for me.
I watched House of Cards first, maybe second season as well, but God, that's so long ago. I don't remember what I had for breakfast, so I definitely don't remember that guy.
Fair.
I mean, there were a lot of people in this episode that you're going, hey, I know that guy. He was not one that immediately stuck out for me. But also, Adam seems like kind of a shithead. So I'm fine with not really recognizing him from anywhere else. We've also got Maxwell A.C. Donovan, who plays Ethan McIntosh. You would probably recognize him best. He's a pretty young actor, but you would recognize him maybe from that 90s show, the revival of that 70s show that came out a couple of years ago.
Which was terrible, but I did watch it.
I watched maybe the first. They got 2 seasons, didn't they? I think I watched all of the first season. Who was he? Which one was he?
He was the goofy, like, what's her face's boyfriend?
The granddaughter's boyfriend?
No, Mila Kunis's character.
Yeah.
Kelso, their kid.
Okay, yeah. I thought he was like the replacement Kelso.
Yes, he was.
He's good in this. He's very good.
Yeah, he is. He's bringing something to the show for sure. Yeah. So next up, we have Kim Dickens, who plays Detective Nancy. And if you are a fan of the Walking Dead franchise, you will recognize her from Fear the Walking Dead. And her character was so good in the beginning, and it is not her fault that the writers absolutely destroyed that show. And her character got a little weird in the end, but that's what I know her best from. She's been in other things, but she really brought it in the early seasons of Fear the Walking Dead.
She's a pistol, man.
I like her.
I wanted to confess stuff just to get her off my back.
I know. I'm like, she made me nervous. And I'm like, I'm just watching the TV show. I haven't done anything.
Yeah. Like, am I going to be called in? I don't know. And then we also have Matthew Modine, who's playing Bill Braddock. Most recently, you would know him from Stranger Things. He was in a lot of different movies from the 80s. I think the biggest one that most people remember him from is that he was Joker in Full Metal Jacket. And in almost everything I've ever seen him in, he's just real punchable. And he's continuing that tradition.
He plays Papa in Stranger Things,
Uh-huh.
and he is, yeah,
Real punchable.
I wanted to give him a good nut punch for what he did to Eleven.
I mean, he half-ass redeemed himself, but it wasn't enough.
No, he was too far gone to me at that point.
Yeah, agreed. But I feel like every character I've ever seen Matthew Modine, I've wanted to punch in the face. So he's really good carrying it on in this show, right?
Yes,
because we'll get into that. But he was my least favorite character in this whole. And by least, I mean like he's doing a great job at what he's supposed to be doing.
Yes, he brings that bad guy jerk off persona into his roles very well.
Yes.
So episode 1 was written by Olivia Milch and directed by Craig Gillespie. And Mandy, would you care to share what this show is about?
Absolutely. Chloe moves in New York's most elite circles with her lawyer husband, Adam, and teenage son, Ethan, by her side, while her estranged sister, Nikki, tries to make ends meet and stay clean. When Adam is brutally murdered, the investigation sends shockwaves through the family and exposes long-buried secrets.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun.
Yay or nay? I'm giving this a yay. I did not want to stop watching. I wanted to keep going as soon as the credits rolled, but obviously we did not. I like the mystery. I like the suspense. I like the acting. I love the cinematography where it's like that gray, dark, even in bright sunlight, it's just got that
noir feel about it.
Yes. It's so, in the setting, especially that house in the Hamptons, that sweet apartment in New York City. I am really, really happy with what I saw in this first episode, and it definitely made me want to keep going.
It's a yay for me. I think that what I love the most about it is I loved all of that, the cinematography, the atmosphere, the beautiful outdoor shots, like when Ethan's walking after he's smoking a joint with his buddy by the shore, and just that pink light coming down as he's walking down the highway, and then it cuts to her going down the same path in the dark. Beautiful. But what I really think that I'm going to enjoy a lot about this is, speaking of Elizabeth Banks, and I didn't Google to see whether or not she was in production or directing or anything like that or writing with this series. But one of the things that is a hallmark of almost everything that she has done in the last decade or so, especially if she's directing or writing, is that you have these very, very serious moments, but you also have these tiny little moments of comedy that are built in that just gives it some kind of realness that makes it less pretentious than it might necessarily be. And I have to think she has a hand in that. Maybe she just picked this role because of that. But like, if you notice, there were several little moments, like the guy in the elevator that was her, and like the way that they are so clearly very deeply divided, but they also have these little sister moments. Anyway, there were all these just great little moments that to me are hallmark, like Elizabeth Banks moments. And so, yeah, I'm all in. Love it.
I do also like the music there. I mean, the score is nice, building the suspense and whatnot, but
having a Patti Smith song right there at the beginning,
and then Fiona Apple at the end.
Yes, you got me like catnip.
And I too, the chemistry between Beale and Banks is what's going to make this show. Their on-screen time together, it makes for what we saw in this episode, I think makes for a good start. And I look forward to the secrets that come out, but how their relationship changes. Hopefully they get closer together, but there's so much buried in there that we'll get into in specific show moments. But I do very much like the two of them together. They play off each other well.
Yeah, two very well chosen leads, I think.
All right, well, let's jump into specific show moments. And Mandy and I discussed before we jumped on that we really, taking notes on this was a little difficult because of how fast paced and interwoven everything was. So I just kind of am breaking it down by character. But, if we're talking about Chloe and it goes into something about Adam or whatever, it'll flow however it flows. But this is just kind of how the best way I thought we could for this first episode to get it started. So we start with Chloe, and I just want to give Jessica Biel all the love and kudos in the world for wearing that white dress. That dress wasn't wearing her, she was wearing it. And oh my God, she looked amazing.
No, fuck Jessica Biel's back muscles. I'm personally attacked by that dress.
You were traumatized.
Yes.
Mandy texted me when she started watching, and I sent to her Jessica Biel that white dress and like 3 or 4 fire emojis, and Mandy came back with "fuck Jessica Biel."
Fuck her back, fuck them back muscles, all of it.
And she knew it too. She knew it.
That's something I want to give a big ups to right now is whoever is doing costuming for this show, because not just that dress, but her back muscles in general and so many other things draw you in to give you hints as to who this character is without her saying a word.
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount of tone and definition that she has, you already know that she is an incredibly disciplined, probably to the point of obsessive about her appearance. Like the bob, you could cut a cake with that sharp bob that she's got. Like everything about her appearance screams control freak and someone who may have a lot more going on under the surface than she necessarily wants everybody to go. I want to talk about that second dress, the one where she was at the award ceremony.
The maxi fit.
Yeah, with the stripes, where
Mm-hmm.
It looks like, I thought that was such brilliant costuming, because I think it speaks very well. And when you look at that dress, originally I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's running around with just some stripes around like the important parts of her body while she's standing on stage. And then if you really look at it, you can tell that like the other stripes aren't actually her skin showing through,
Right.
but it is crafted to look that way. And it very much tells you something about her character, that this dress, it was beautiful. It was a gorgeous dress. I'm just kidding. Like I'm totally in awe of how gorgeous this woman is. But I think that that was also by design, because it looks like it's showing you everything, but in reality, you're not really seeing anything at all. So
Yeah.
I think it really was very deliberate choice on their part for her, because I think that she wants to come across as someone who is an open book, very selfless, and that's what she wants to project. But underneath, there's a whole lot more going on. The costuming for her in general for this show was brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the points that I have for her is appearances. And it's evident to me that she is a socialite. She is, from the outside looking in, she looks like she has it all together. She's fit. She's got a stellar wardrobe. She's got the hardworking, well-to-do husband. She's got the Manhattan apartment with the wraparound terrace that Adam mentions about the magazine. And we find out that she is an editor, I guess, editor-in-chief of a lifestyle magazine and a champion for labor rights. It's obvious that appearances are very important to her. And I do like the way you talk about her, the costuming choices for her and how that adds to that.
Yeah, she wants to appear perfect on the outside. And she's very complex, which is another thing I love about this show, is that like whoever is writing this character, and I know it's based on a novel, but they are doing a good job of portraying her as much less likable as she wants the world to see, but probably not an out and out villain like the police are kind of starting to eye her as, because you could tell that she has a very complex relationship with her sister. And whoever, again, is writing this, and I know it's based on a novel, but it is very well done, because she's not a cartoon villain. You get the impression that, yes, she does have far more going on underneath the surface. then she's projecting she's not the saint. Like, just on paper, she's this woman who has it all. Like you said, it's not, she's running this fashion paper, but she's also using that position to try to speak for labor rights. And she is obviously very, very meticulously dressed and wants to present this perfect image. But then she seems to genuinely really love her nephew, whom she may or may not kind of have stolen from her sister. And the sister's relationship, you know, you could clearly see that she has some contempt for the choices that her sister's made. But I think you could also see that she clearly harbors some guilt for taking over her sister's life. So she's very complex.
Yeah, she loves her sister. It's not black and white. There's obviously, like you said, a lot of gray area in there. And Jessica Biel, you and I often talk about how we love a character who can do so much with so little dialogue. And when she finds Adam dead and calls the police, and the police are interrogating her and whatnot, she doesn't say a whole lot. But her face, even the way the slight trembles, you know, in her, with her body and her body language, she said so much. But I will say, I got the impression, now, I don't know what it's like to walk in and find your spouse dead, but she really kind of didn't seem
super shocked
or broke down about the fact that he was gone.
Well, I don't know. And this is one of the things that made it a little difficult to take notes. And I think, as we've mentioned, if we had it to do over, Becky and I would have watched 2 shows and done this first episode, about at least this first episode with the first and second, because I think we would have had a better idea of exactly where they're going with everything. But I don't know if you noticed this, because I had to go back. There were so many clues that I had to go back and rewatch it a couple of times. I kept rewinding a few parts. One of them is they retold that story a couple of different times.
Mm-hmm.
The original version of her finding him, where you're right, she was upset, but she didn't seem super shocked. That is not the version that she was flashing back to later in the episode. Like, the way that everything transpired there is not exactly the same as it was. So I think they're building up this case for her to be an incredibly unreliable narrator. One of the things that I picked up on is in that beginning part where she opens the refrigerator, one of the first notes, because I tried it just taking notes from beginning to end, old school, like we did with What We Do in the Shadows. And one of the things I noted was, why are there 17 perfectly faced
jars of jam? That's in the field notes.
Yeah.
That is my second field note, is they sure have a lot of jam in that fridge.
When they flash back later in the episode to her remembering, because I think that's the version she told the cops, that first version where she is painting this perfect picture. If you go back and watch where she is flashing back to it in her own head towards the end, and she opens that fridge, those jams are not there.
That's because that's her New York kitchen.
No, it was 2 different kitchens.
I saw that, but I thought it was the kitchen in New York that she was opening that second time, because she had the sweatshirt and stuff on.
Well, then we might put this in my apologies for next time, but I'm pretty sure what I was watching was, because the jam, that's so funny. We have the same brain, that the jam jammed out at us that first time. But I was paying attention to that. Now, granted, it was me doing the rewatch just before we jumped on. So I didn't go rewind again all the way back to the beginning. But I believe it was when she was flashing back to that night in her head, and she opened the fridge. And when she did, in that fridge, there wasn't like 17 jams. There was it looked like my fridge. There was like a half empty bottle of hot sauce and, like some random steak saucer shit that was in there. It didn't look anything like the beginning. But now I'm going to have to go back as soon as we get off, and I'll go revisit.
I think it was 2 different fridges in 2 different houses, but I'm curious to see about that.
We'll get on top of FridgeGate as soon as we get off here.
So, yeah, I also want to talk a little bit about the threats that she starts getting on the internet. And I do want to give a shout out to Killer Chad 69. It's not every day that you hear or read Winky Fingers cocks are essential. I know that was supposed to be like boo boys, but that shit just made me laugh. It's just, and her reaction, yeah, thanks, Killer Chad 69.
I think that was another one of those moments that they built in that I was talking about, of just little points of humor.
Little levity.
Yeah, a little bit of levity and a pretty dark thing. But that whole thing about cocks are essential. I see that pretty frequently when I'm scrolling through social media,
Do
quite
you
honestly.
really?
Yeah, like just yesterday, my friend Terry sent me this Instagram reel that was these guys who were literally debating whether or not women are capable of having an orgasm and claiming that if you do, that you are becoming a man. I can't make it make sense. It was a whole panel of men discussing that women cannot have an orgasm, which, says a lot of sad things about their dating life. But the funniest part about that reel is that it ended with some woman singing this song called Stop Giving Men Microphones.
Ah, yes.
But no, I mean, unfortunately, in our world today, that is a very accurate description of it's funny, but it's all too real, especially if you're a woman, as she says later on social media. So I don't know where they're going with this plot line, but there's millions of those men out there.
I believe it. But she doesn't seem all too concerned about the threats or the package. I mean, she gets spooked enough, to take the knife with her when she goes into the house, and she's a little nervous when whoever's following her on the way to her Hamptons house. But yeah, she's I don't know if it's overconfidence or her trying to keep up her appearance and facade, but she really didn't seem too concerned about that.
I'm of two minds about it. I think it could be that it's just what it is on the surface, that there genuinely are people that are harassing her. But I also got the impression after my second rewatch, that version was one that she was telling the cops, like where we see her scrolling through and saying, Chad, what was his name again? Chad 69 or
Killer Chad 69.
Killer Chad 69. That was the version that she was telling the police. I still think there's a possibility that whole storyline is her making things up to protect either the real killer or for some other reason. I'm not 100% sold on the fact that she actually is being harassed.
Okay, I see it differently. I think what we saw in those situations with her talking to Artie, I don't think that was flashbacks of her talking to the cops. I think that's just them giving us what happened 36 hours before she walked in and found her husband dead. I think the mystery starts when she leaves the party in that beautiful white dress and gets home. That's where I think the inconsistencies, or not so much that she's lying to the cops, but that what we saw the first time when she drives up to the house and finds him, and then when the cops are talking to her, they're like, okay, well, it should have only taken you 20 minutes. Then she's like, okay, well, I pulled over on the side of the road. And that's when I sent those texts. That's when I got lost on social media and whatnot. I don't think it's her lying. I just think it's more, they're adding a little bit more to the story as we move through it. I don't know. I don't think it's lying. I don't think she's lying. I think she
is definitely.
Well, she's omitting things.
Yeah.
But
a lot of important things. Like initially when she's telling the story and it shows her pulling over, it looks like this very quick thing that she's telling the cops that I did because I'm scared because there's somebody stalking me. But then when she goes back and relives it in her own head, she pulled over, gets out that second phone, texts somebody, "Are you there?" And then starts sending texts to her husband and whatnot, which it's deliberately left very ambiguous. It could be what you said, that there were things she omitted because she knew they would make her look bad. But it also could be because she's actually planning this with someone else. You just don't know.
Yeah, and that's part of the great thing about this show is that I look forward to the two of us going through this together, because while we do have the same brain, we also can see things differently, and it's fun.
Yeah, I think there's so much. I think that there's stuff you catch and stuff that I catch. And so I guess it'll be interesting to see how quickly whichever one of us figures out who did it, if either.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to move on from Chloe to Adam, and there's not a whole lot to say about Adam. He doesn't seem like a complete and total asshole, but he definitely seems to be an absentee husband. He's a high-powered attorney. It's obvious that he isn't around a lot due to work, and even Catherine, her friend or publicist or whatever she is, even his boss that we don't like, make jokes about him not being there. And there's obviously something shady with this Gentry group that he's working with so closely that's taking up all his time. But like when they're in the bedroom together and she's drunk and, he's like, I just miss you. I felt that his feelings toward her are sincere.
I thought that the first time, but after rewatching it again, like I am very much on the side. Like I've come out of that second rewatch feeling like there's two episodes going on. There's an episode that is the version, or at least that's like her unreliable narrative version. And then there's the truth. Maybe there's more than multiple truths. I don't know. But I think that definitely in this episode, they were flashing back to these different scenes and going back and rewatching, you will see key little differences there. So I think that she very much like that part. And if that is a real part, like that's not just her describing it in a way that seems more palatable and makes him look better so that it doesn't seem like they had any problems. If it's real, I'm still not giving him a pass. That guy's a shithead.
Well, no, and I'm not saying that the man is dead, and there is a reason the man is dead. And if you go back to when Catherine gets in the car after she comes to visit her to check on her, and she's calling whom I'm assuming is Bill, Adam's boss, and she's like, well, how do you think she is? And she makes the comment, good fucking riddance, about Adam. So there's obviously something not great about Adam. But I don't think he is your cookie cutter villain. I think he loves his wife. I think he loves his kid. I think he has gotten himself into something that's probably maybe changed the way he acts. I don't know. I don't think he's, like I said, I don't think he's a cookie cutter villain.
I don't know. And that's one of the things I'll be interested to see is how this is going to play out, because I feel like the story that they're going to end up telling, which again, this is just projection because there's so much left unanswered. But just looking at the fact that man remarried his sister's or his first wife's sister, kept her from her child, and then acted as if she was the big villain, like at the birthday party and all that stuff. I don't know. I feel like it's going to turn out that he was much more manipulative, that part of what came between these two sisters was this shithead man who it looks like, just from context from this show, that these two grew up pretty rough, or that they didn't come from a privileged background.
And they all grew up together.
Right. And you find, well, did we find that out in this episode, or was that in
when the detective is questioning Chloe?
That's right.
And she says high school sweethearts, and she's like, well, not exactly. And
she knew him when we were younger.
Yeah. So they've all been together a long time. I don't know. But I will say, to add to your point, when Ethan is sitting on the beach smoking a terribly rolled joint, he's like, I gotta go. He's like, you're not coming with me? He's like, my parents would kill me if they knew I was with a drug dealer. And Kevin, his friend, muffles, your dad's an asshole. So, right. Yeah.
I'm glad you reminded me that that's where she said that we knew each other when we were younger, because what I'm getting from that is that she knew him when she was younger because he was married to her big sister. And I feel like where they're going with that is, while the sister was married to him, and again, just projection, but I could totally see a world where it's like this Ivy League guy comes into these sisters' lives. They've had struggle or what have you. The sister marries him. and seems to have it all, but she's being slowly driven to drug addiction and whatnot by this guy, or, the toxic relationship, whatever. But the little sister is seeing this from the outside and thinking that she made it and that she has it all and everything's perfect. And this motherfucker's in her ear telling her, your sister, I love her and I just do everything for her, but she's, I'm not in love with her anymore because she's an addict or what have you. And that's how he's able to manipulate her into taking his side over her sister. And I think that's going to be one of the plot lines that's coming forward. But again, this is all projection. So it's just fun to speculate. We really don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
I mean, Adam clearly must have loved his dad to some extent, because at the end, he was laying there in his suit of armor.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So, only thing I really have to say about Ethan, besides his joint rolling skills, we find out that Chloe's not his real mom and that Nikki is his mom. And I don't know what made the detective so quick to jump on that thinking he had to do with them. But as the story unfolded, you did get little, and I have it when we get to field notes. I have a section called the evidence. So we'll go through all of the evidence that we find it from this first episode. I don't know. I think that child or that actor is doing a phenomenal job keeping us curious. Like he's not giving anything away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your first reaction is, well, he doesn't seem, when he finds out from the detectives that his dad is dead, first thing he says is, where's my mom? And he goes and sits with her, but none of them shed a tear. They're sitting out by the pool while the detectives are getting the body out of the house. And he's like, I have a headache. And he puts his hat over his head, puts his earbuds in, and just like a pissy teenage kid would do when you tell him you need to have it. It just seemed, neither one of them seemed like super.
No, they're acting very strangely.
Yeah. So, but again, this is all brand new. This all just happened. I don't know. But I like that. I don't know where the cop, maybe it's just a cop suspicion, intuition that made her want to look at him so closely. But I'm curious to see where that goes. But I really just wanted to say I love what this actor is doing with this character, making us wonder what is this kid? Who is he about?
I had more sympathy for his character than anybody else and could relate more, because I too was raised by two sisters who I called both of them mom. It's a very different scenario, and they always got along, mostly got along, but like just that confusion on people. Like I have a note in here that I am uniquely equipped to follow the family dynamic in this show, because it's very similar to my family, where a lot of times somebody's kid is being raised by somebody else. And specifically, my mom was very young when she had me, and she lived with my aunt. And so when I just stayed living with my aunt until I was about 15 years old, and just that whole conversation about the first wife was, that his mom is really his quote unquote mom's sister. That just made me laugh, because it just flashed back to all the times I've had to explain that family dynamic to somebody and what it feels like to have one mom that's your aunt, one mom that's your biological mom, but you call them both mom and you don't want to hurt the other one's feelings. Like for years, man, I don't know why my real mom never told me don't call Bonnie mom, but I felt real protective of her, but also protective of Bonnie. I didn't want to insult her by not calling her mom all the time, but then I didn't want to hurt my mom's feelings. It was a real line I walked for a long time. It was very much a flashback watching this.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, very strange.
All right, well, let's move into the final point I have before we get into field notes. So, Nikki. So Nikki, played by Elizabeth Banks, we find out, is Ethan's biological mom and currently living in Cleveland, Ohio. She was married to Adam before Chloe was, and it looks as though she's an addict. So she tells Chloe that she's been sober for 5 years, but we see her in whoever's house that is, which makes me wonder, is that their mom? Or
That
is
was my
she
guess.
just like a
The caretaker.
caregiver who goes and sits with people during the day to make sure they take their medicine, give them food or whatnot?
And we don't know for sure.
Yeah. So, but she says she's been sober for 5 years, but we see her take that bottle of pills out to the car and take one. So,
Well, is she sober? Is she not sober? That was a
yeah.
thought I had, but another thought I also had is that there is a possibility that we have not gotten context yet where Nikki and her son have been in contact more than anybody knows, and that she potentially already knows that he's dead, and that medication might be something that she's legally allowed to take for anxiety or something
But
like
she
that.
took it before she got the call.
Yeah, but if she was involved in it, then she would have already known before that phone rang. And she's got that busted phone laying there too, that theoretically, if she were the one that were there, or if Ethan had called her and she had been there, come to help him if he did it, she could. We don't know for sure that Nikki's not involved. That's part of the great mystery. Is like that's more of the context laying that they're doing here, is that we don't know. Is she still actively taking drugs, or are these like prescribed things that she's allowed to have? Does she know more about Adam's death than she's letting on? Are she and Ethan in I don't know, but I feel like there's going to be more to that.
I don't think the pills she was taking is something that she's allowed to have because it wasn't her prescription.
I couldn't tell. Do we know that it wasn't her prescription?
Well, she was going through the medicine cabinet. She was picking up different bottles and looking at the labels. And then she decided on that one, grabbed it, and went out. And then when we fast forward towards the end of the episode, when she's at Chloe's house and she's going through Chloe's medicine cabinet and she's picking up all the bottles and looking at the labels, she decides on a Tylenol, which I was very grateful for. But I think she's rifling through that, whoever, her mom or somebody she's just caring for. I got the impression that those were not her pills. She was looking for something that she could take to give her some kind of high. And she took those pills, went out to the car and popped a pill, and then got the phone call.
Yeah, I definitely think that's where they obviously wanted us to go with that. I just am not sure. And maybe it's just because I'm trying to overanalyze everything because we don't know what's going on. But I am not so sure that that's because you couldn't see the label. I tried to see whose name was on that bottle, and you never do see whose name is on the bottle. So just theoretically speaking, what if she's got cancer? She doesn't want anybody to know. I don't know. I don't know. And that's the thing. We don't know.
I don't think she's going to be the main villain. I think there's going to be a lot that has contributed to her circumstances and her situation. But I do also think that her being absent in Ethan's life isn't solely on Chloe and Adam, that it looks like she pops in and out. And like when she sees him for the first time, when she shows up at the apartment and she's like staring at him in awe, like, oh my God, look how big you've gotten. It's either a great act or she has not seen that kid in a long time. And he does not seem super excited that she's there, nor that she's the one with legal custody. And he's like, do I have to go? Am I going to have to go live with her? I don't think any of these people are without fault, but I think a lot of the situation that she's in her relationship with Ethan is self-induced. And this is me looking at it, having lived with siblings that are addicts and watching their relationships with their kids. So maybe I'm projecting. I don't know.
No, I think we're on the same page. And I think that the more obvious answer is that you are correct, that she's still using to some degree. But I think that they are also trying to lay down these clues to misdirect us in certain ways. So I don't know that it's just that simple. And I hear what you're saying about the addict sibling, because, I had a similar situation in my family, and I 100% recognize that behavior of popping into a kid's life, scaring the shit out of them, and then disappearing forever. In the real world, a lot of times people create that situation on their own, and the separation is solely their fault. But I feel like they're laying the groundwork for the fact that maybe her addiction was exacerbated during her marriage. I don't know. Maybe I just want that guy to be a big shithead and both of them to be sinned against rather than sinning. And I just get the feeling that it's going to turn out that her addiction, like, yeah, I hear you. It seems like they definitely are laying out that she's barely been in her son's life and he's more afraid of her or intimidated by her than anything else. She definitely seems to have had addiction issues. I just don't know that it's not going to turn out that that husband didn't exacerbate that and then take advantage of that situation to get out of a marriage that he didn't necessarily want to be in anymore. And it was a convenient excuse for Chloe to feel a little less guilty about moving on with her sister's ex-husband and taking her child and raising her child. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah. And the last note that I have on Nikki is that final couple of minutes where Chloe's watching her in the bathroom going through the medicine cabinet. I'm glad she skipped the hydrocodone and went for the Tylenol. And then she notices her sister there and the look that those two share. It just give me all of it now. Give me this entire story.
The backstory of the siblings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Chloe's like, yeah, I'm going to put you up in a really nice hotel. And Nikki's like, yeah, go ahead. But Ethan's coming with me. Like, that's the one thing she's got that she hasn't had all of these years that she can hang over her sister's head. Yeah, sure, you've got everything else, but legally that now this kid is mine. So I am going to use this to get back at you for whatever reason, the things she suffered, whatever fault, you stole my husband. I don't know. But she hung on to that. And then when she points to the bedroom and she was like, this one, and Chloe's like, that one. And that closing shot of Chloe out on the balcony smoking a cigarette. And then she turns to go inside and the camera slightly pans over and you see Nikki on the other side, having just watched her sister this time with that same look that Chloe had for Nikki when she was looking at her in the mirror. I don't know. That dynamic, I cannot wait to see how all that unfolds.
Yeah, I think that whole thing and the way that I have projected this going, which again, it's going to be super fun to see how wrong I am about a lot of this because I did the same thing with the pit. A lot of it I got right, but a lot of it I didn't. I was just reading things that weren't there. The way that I read their dynamic is Nikki has a lot of guilt for the things that she's done in the past. And she is genuinely, whether she's still relapsing or what have you, I guess we'll wait and see that. But I think in general, she fully understands that a lot of what happened with her relationship with her son was on her. And I think she genuinely loves her little sister. But I also think that she sees her little sister and she's known her whole life. And she knows how important control and appearance are to Nikki. And maybe I'm just giving her too much grace. But I didn't feel like she is trying to control or manipulate her through her relationship with Ethan. I will say, I want to pause for a second though and say, I thought that whole thing with the cops was very weird that they were like, he needs to be with his guardian. That boy's 17 years old. He's 6'3". Like he's about to be a fully realized adult. I just don't see cops jumping into that so quickly.
They had to make, because I think that, like, I see what you're saying. But I do think Nikki is not, none of these, like I said, none of these
Nobody's
people are saints.
Yeah.
And I think Nikki is like, finally, I have something that she doesn't have. She got my husband. She got my kid. She got, I don't know, maybe the life she thought she should have had. To her, and Chloe obviously has that persona that she has it all, that she is every woman, and that look how great I am. And Nikki's like, I have, not that she doesn't love Ethan. I'm not saying that, but if she is an addict, addicts
can be very manipulative.
Yes. And that is the one card or whatever that she has that she can hold over her sister, that when she feels like her sister's judging her, all of this, the last however many years of their lives together, it's all coming to a head here, and her sister is looking at her and judging her. The only weapon she's got that she can throw back at Chloe is, sure, I'll go stay somewhere else, but Ethan's coming with me.
She did say that, but I'm going to throw another reason, because I don't want you to think I'm debating with you. I think both of us are just completely in the dark as far as just except for instinct. But I want to make a prediction because I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. Just think about the title of it is The Better Sister. On paper, in this episode, clearly Chloe is the better sister. She's got it more together. She's kind to the guy at the desk. They've got a relationship that he takes her kid to the Hamptons. She brings him coffee. She's thoughtful. She's everything to everyone. But then you start getting these little hints that this life that she's got is under the surface is coming apart. I feel like the story going forward, as we look back on how she ended up married to her sister's husband, is going to be that Nikki did feel all of those things when it would all happen, when she was losing control, when she was in her addiction or what have you, that she did feel that resentment and that rage. And when she was in her active addiction, she probably did a lot of stupid shit back then. But I feel like at this point, what the story is going to end up being is that they come together to help when she forgives Chloe. I think she's moved past a lot of that. Like, I think she knows Chloe's life is not perfect because it was her life at one point. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I think we're going to look back and we're going to see that at one point in time, Nikki was the one that was obsessed with appearance and that she had everything was perfect on the outside. And that she, had these beautiful clothes and the beautiful home and the perfect life and the little kid. And then it slowly unraveled. And I suspect a lot of that unraveling had to do with the shithead husband that she was married to. And then she did lose it all. And for the last 10 years has been completely exiled from that perfect life. So I think she does see this as her chance to repair her relationship with her son. But I feel like what the story arc is going to be is that she's going to be the one to start figuring out Chloe is not telling the truth and that there's a lot more going on. Whatever it's going to turn out to be, that whoever killed the guy, I feel like they're going to end up working together and forgiving each other for the past as they learn that a lot of the traumas that happened to them could be laid at the feet of the dead guy. But I don't feel like she said that to be like, I'm going to immediately come in here and start manipulating Ethan or holding it over Chloe's head and using him as a weapon because it's the one tool she's got. I didn't get that. I felt like it was very much like she is truly going to try to be a mom this time and look out for Ethan's interests.
Yeah, I'm not giving her that much depth at this point. I'm not saying she doesn't love Ethan. I'm not saying that at all. I think she does care. And I do think that these two throughout this season, which based on the previews, looks like they're going to have to work together to save Ethan because it looks like he's going to be the prime suspect and they're going to learn a lot and they will forgive each other for each other's transgressions. But in this moment right now, the only dig she can give to her sister, who she is obviously pissed off at, is, yeah, you don't want me to stay in your fancy home that's got plenty of space for me? Fine. I'll go. Yeah, put me up at a hotel. But I'm his legal guardian and he's coming with me. I just saw it flat out for what it was as a dig.
Well, we'll see.
All right. So let's move into field notes. We already talked about the extras that I had listed here. So this was adapted from a novel by Alistair Burke. Have you read this book? I have not read this book.
I've never heard of it. And I've never heard of, I don't know if it's a woman. I like the name.
I know. It's pretty cool. If you are listening and have read the novel and are watching this show, without spoilers, like I said, we're going through a few episodes at a time. Let us know how the story is playing out compared to the book. I'm always interested in how that works. And then I want to go through the evidence. So, what we have so far, and let me know if I missed anything. So, the overturned vase, the knife, the burner phone, Ethan's arm injury, the gap in time with Ethan's alibi, the break-in looks like it was staged, and the only items that we know to be missing so far are from Ethan's room, and then there's Ethan's DNA under Adam's fingernails.
Yeah, but also like one of the things we haven't really gotten into is that there's clearly something going on between Chloe and Adam's coworker.
Jake, that's my next field note.
I think he's the other end of that burner phone, personally.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm so glad you feel that. Yes. I just think that moment when she walks into that little award reception or whatever, and she encounters Jake, I wrote here in my notes, weird moment at the table with Jake, who works with Adam. Are they having an affair? ?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of the direction I thought they were going with that. But also, I think the biggest evidence was just the different realities between the first version of the story that she told and how things appeared in the flashback. One of the things I wanted to clarify, though, it seemed to me, and I'm going to go back as soon as we get done, I'm going to go back and rewatch this again because now I've got specific things that I want to go and just absolutely verify. One of the things that I thought that I caught in the first version is that she did not take that knife in.
I thought the same thing, but on the second watch, she does.
She does take it in the first time?
She does, yeah. I went back and looked because I was like, wait, I don't recall that knife being there the first time. But when she gets out of the car, she goes back and grabs the knife when she grabs her phone. She does have it with her the first time.
Okay. How stupid was it that she threw it in the glove box of the vehicle?
I mean, that's just screaming, I'm guilty.
Right. If you didn't stab him, why not just say, hey, this has got his blood. I fell. She'd already told him she'd fallen or whatever. I mean,
she had the reason to carry it because she was concerned for her safety after getting these messages. So I took this knife in with me. The one thing I do question is why was it open?
All of that. Yeah. Like the whole thing, there's more to it there.
Because when you see it on the ground next to Adam, it's closed.
Oh, really?
It's closed. When she drops it, when we see it again, it's open.
Yeah, again, that's like the difference. That's to me, those are the biggest clues, is just how unreliable of a narrator Chloe is. That the version she tells, there's significant differences when she is flashing back in her own head from the way that everything is initially approached. The weird animosity between her as an investigative journalist and her husband's boss, that was another one that I thought was, strange. Maybe like she's not having an affair with that guy. Maybe he's helping her investigate the company.
That's possible. Because when she's being interrogated or interviewed by the cops, and they're asking about Adam's work, and she's like, I don't know, it's real estate law, I think, or something like that. She's like, I don't know anything about that. Yeah.
So, I don't know. For me, just the biggest aha moments were what the version she told the cops, how it differed when she was flashing back in her own head.
Yeah. See, I don't think I don't know. I see what you're saying. And there are inconsistencies, but I don't think
she did it. I also don't think Ethan did. I don't think anybody that's obvious did it. And if they did do it, it's not for the reasons that seem to be what they would be on the surface.
Last thing I want to bring up is Rick. I think it was very telling of Nikki's character, of how she gets this man to share a ride with her, pay for half, probably paid for the whole thing, carries up her luggage. He knows the entire family. And then that last line when he's getting ready to leave, and he's like, okay, Nikki, I'll email you. And she's like, all right, Rick, take care. I don't know. I just love that moment. And I thought it spoke a lot about her character. And it makes me think of that meme of me getting in the Uber. Hey, how are you? me leaving the Uber. Good luck at the custody trial.
Right.
You're going to win. I'm praying for you or whatever. That's what that made me think of.
That is both of us. But what was that line that he said to Ethan about women, or something about how hard it is on men lately, or that it's very complex, or something like that?
I did like when he was talking about, I learned all about you on the TV.
Yeah.
It's like, it's impossible to turn those TVs off. And she's like, no, you can turn those TVs off.
You actually can. Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny. I thought there were some very different things to living in the South, like just the idea of taking a taxi, period. It's just not something that happens in the South very much anymore. But also, I laughed when she pulled over. Like, I know it turned out to be more complex than what she initially said about pulling over because she was nervous. But yeah, in the South, we're not about to pull over to let you go past us on the. You can ride my ass the whole way, or you can get over in the next lane and pass. I am not pulling over on the side of the road to let you go because you're tailgating me.
I am going to say I have done that.
Really?
When I am on because I grew up in a very small town with mountainous, hilly, windy roads, and I don't drive fast on roads like that. So if I am driving down a country road that's windy or whatever, and I'm going slower and somebody pulls up behind me, I will pull. If there's a safe space too, I will pull over, let them pass, because it just stresses me out having them behind me. But if I'm driving the speed limit down a road, like the highway or something, and you're riding my ass, I am going to slow down and trap you so you cannot get around me. So I guess yes to both.
Yes, I say, no, you're right. I think I was just being a little bit funny about that, but we're much more likely to, in general, give you road rage than what you do is much smarter thing to do than playing chicken with an idiot. I am much more prone to, I'm going to get shot one day because I'm throwing out a bird.
Yeah, I try so hard not to do that anymore because
it's
she's
stupid.
Not joking when she says you're going to get shot. If y'all could hear the news in Nashville of how many people get shot daily because of stupid road rage. So, yeah, be careful out there. All right, well, that's all I have for notes, unless there's anything else you want to add.
No, just I did think that it was very funny when Nikki saw Chloe watching her in the bathroom and goes, "You look so fucking stupid." Oh no, when she was flashing back to the last time that Ethan had seen Nikki and it was his birthday and they were doing the nights and whatnot. And she's like, "What are you wearing?" She goes, "Something medieval." And she goes, "You look so fucking stupid in that outfit."
I also like the way she says, no matter how hard you fuck him, Ethan's still going to be mine. I was like, dang.
Ooh, girl. Yeah. I want to clarify, in case either one of my mothers is listening to this, that was not their dynamic. Just because I brought that up, I want to make it very clear that just because I understand the complexity of having an aunt that is also your mom, there's no similarity as far as like their personality or the relationship or anything like that.
Well, I know both of them, and in my head, this is their new story. This is their new narrative.
Girl, that ain't right. You're going to be getting a talking to from my mom.
As long as it's with a side of pork chops.
You will never get another pork chop again. But it did like crack me up as far as like that line it's just like such a thing you would say to your sister. She's married to your crappy
ex and raising your child.
That birthday party, I think that's further proof for my argument that that guy is part of what infected both of them with this need to appear perfect. Like, how over the top was it that he's doing all of this for a 5 or 6 year old's birthday? And you can tell Chloe is feeling some guilt about the role that she has taken because she knows it's not as cut and dried as her sister is just this monster of an addict. So I think that's part of like how they're going to find out that he had a lot more to do with both of them trying to live these perfect lives.
Yeah. We shall see.
No, I'm like, fuck Adam. I do know that.
Hashtag fuck Adam.
Yeah.
All right. So, final thoughts. I think I've said everything I need to say. I like it. I cannot wait to dive into the next episode, which is probably going to happen after I run a few errands this afternoon. And if we're going to cover episodes 2 and 3 next week, I'm probably just going to go ahead and watch them both. So, I like it. I'm in.
You just said that with the relish of Nikki going through somebody's medicine cabinet and getting her fix from whatever that pill was.
Well, I'm about to go pop some TV pills.
Funny. My final thought is sisterhood is complex. It is real weird being sisters sometimes. And I think that could sum up the theme of this show.
Yeah. So we didn't get any feedback this week, but I do know there are some people watching this show that are keeping up with our page. So hopefully as we move through the episodes, we'll start getting some feedback. And I do hope that once we get to the end, because I'm assuming most people will probably beat us to the end, hopefully we'll get some feedback on what people think about the show as a whole.
And no spoilers, though. We want feedback, but if you're going to comment on the episodes that we're covering, please try not to jump ahead.
Yes. And if you do want to comment as you watch the episodes, email us, just put the episode number in the subject line and we'll know we won't share it until we get to that episode. But if you're ready to give us the scoop on the entire season, just put that in the subject line so we'll know not to look at it and get spoiled. But yeah, I don't want to limit when you can send your feedback, so just make sure you clarify what episode it's for so we'll know not to look ahead.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, so this week's poll: do you think Ethan killed his dad?
No, that would be way too obvious. Or yes, all the evidence says he did.
I'm saying no.
I think it's way too obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he did, I think it's going to be far more no, I don't think he did. I don't think he did. And as a matter of fact, one of my notes here is that the only thing that I can tell is that it definitely isn't Ethan or the boyfriend, because both of those seem way, way, way too obvious.
Yeah. I think it's somebody we don't know.
That's my guess right now. Yeah.
Well, if you would like to get in touch with us, leave some feedback or just say hi, you can email or send us a voice message as an attachment to what'sontonight2@gmail.com. And that's what's on tonight with the number 2@gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode. And you can leave feedback in the comments section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. And we can also be found on Instagram at What's On Tonight Podcast and the number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you'd leave a review, comment, like, and or share on your podcast listening app of choice. So, Mandy, how about we go sit by the pool with Ethan and Chloe and talk about where else listeners can find us, podcast recommendations, good TV or movies, or anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, as I mentioned in the past, I have a podcast called Dinner for Her. We just this past episode, it was my daughter Ava and I sitting down and talking about the amazing poet Sylvia Plath, all about her life and why, if you only know her as the proto-goth chick, that's a very, very narrow scope of who she actually was as a person. It was a great episode. We talk a lot about mental health and how that has affected both she and I. So it was a really special episode. If anybody is interested in that kind of topic, I encourage you to please check it out.
It was a great episode. I loved when I was listening and, knowing you and Ava and your relationship, and really tough conversations y'all had. It was beautiful.
I appreciate that. I love this podcast. I know I've told you this a lot. It feels sometimes like it's my life's work now because I get so much joy out of it. And it's so good for my mental health because in this shit show that we're living in, particularly with the rollback of women's rights and the scary prevalence of Chads in the world, killer Chads in the world.
69.
Right. Killer Chad 69, incels that want to tell women what to do with their body and take away our rights and things like that. It gives me something to focus on, and it makes me feel like I'm helping, even if it's just one at a time with these awesome women like you that sit down with me and have these talks. But this one, was something that I wasn't looking forward as much to on the front end, because I thought I knew who Sylvia Plath was from just reading back in the day. But my daughter wanted to pick her, and I am doing this largely for my daughter. So I really wanted to do it with her, and I did Sylvia because that was her request. And I'm just so glad that I did it, because I found out so many things about myself and about Sylvia that I didn't know before. And it also, like you pointed out, allowed me and Ava to have some conversations that I've been dreading for most of her life, but were very healthy. And I think we've always been close, but it made us even closer. You guys go check it out. And the next one should be up this coming Friday. And the subject matter is, I don't want to give anything away, but it's going to be another amazing episode. The woman that we're covering, this woman you may or may not have heard of. She's somebody that I know is briefly mentioned in some history classes on a college level. But unless you are a true history nerd, you probably know almost nothing about this woman. And it is a crying shame. What she did for this country, the amount of work that she put in to push us forward as a nation, we owe her so much. And I genuinely want as many people as I can to get to listen to that episode, because as a country, we owe her, and more people should know her story.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear it. As far as podcast recommendations, the cast of us is covering The Walking Dead, Dead City with Ben and Alex. I had the pleasure of guesting with them on episode 4, I think. I don't know, last week's episode. And those dudes are amazing. They're the male versions of me and Mandy. And I loved getting a chance to be on with them, and the great chemistry, and their coverage is great. So please check them out. And also Strange Indeed with Rima and Paik is covering the final season of You. So please check that out. And I do want to give an update on our interview with Jeanette, aka Myrna, from the amazing TV show The Pit. She's been sick, so we have had to kind of postpone a couple of times, but we are still in talks with her. We are working on getting that interview scheduled, and as soon as we get an update, I will keep y'all posted, but it's still in the works, so keep an eye out for that. And as for TV recommendations, I highly recommend those of you who like this show that were The Better Sister and Odd Little Mysteries, Sirens on Netflix, starring Julianne Moore and Kevin Bacon. It's only 5 episodes. I watched it in one day. Surprise. It's so good. And please check out the finale of The Handmaid's Tale. That show brought it from season 1 to the end, and I loved it. So I highly recommend, especially those looking for hope in the world that we're living in today. It was a nice little beacon of hope, that finale was.
And now that they've wrapped it up and it didn't end with like all the women being forced back into their bonnets, I'll actually watch it.
I'm glad. I think you should. It's hard. It is.
Yeah, I couldn't handle it if that's how it was going to end. That's why I've been waiting deliberately.
Yeah, it's now there's still more fighting to be done, but the ending is very satisfying.
Well, and I don't want to hijack this to go back again, but because I know this is important to you, I want to tie that back to why the next episode of Dinner for Her is so important to me, because that is very much the theme of this woman's life. And I love that that's how they ended it, that they didn't wrap it up with this neat little bow, because I think that one of the lessons that I think that particularly I'm speaking here to women, but I think all of us need to learn is that the rights that you were born with, someone had to work very, very hard to give you those rights, and they can always be taken away if you don't acknowledge that and protect it and appreciate it. And that takes all of us. Like I think my girl Jasmine Crockett says, democracy is not a spectator sport. It really takes all of us. You got to stay awake and pay attention, or you absolutely can have your rights snatched right back away from you by the powers that be. So
yeah, So we'd like to give a big thank you to Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment for giving us this platform. Please visit the Pirate Core website. You can find it on our Facebook page, and there you can find our podcast as well as other podcasts like Panels to Pixels, which is about to celebrate their 300th episode. They're going to be covering the old school Superman. So congratulations to Mark on 300 episodes. And you can also find Adrenaline Cinema podcast and what was just discussed, the amazing Dinner for Her podcast with our very own Mandy. And then you can find other projects that Mark is working on.
Well, that wraps up our coverage of episode 1 of The Better Sister. We'll be back next to cover episode 2 titled Lot of Sky. And then I believe we will also be covering episode 3, which I don't have the name of, but we'll be talking about it.
We just decided that before we started podcasting, so sorry.
So episode 3's name is part of the mystery that you need to come back to.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
I want to say something though before we check out here. I hope everybody listening, like, this is our first time with this show. We don't talk about any of this stuff before we jump on, like, other than like my text about being pissed off about Jessica Biel's back muscles. We do not hash any of this out beforehand. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that Becky and I are at odds on any of this. This is just our process. There's a lot of mystery here. We are seeing things from different, which I think speaks to the brilliance of this show. We are seeing certain parts of this from very different angles. And I think that that's deliberate on the part of the showrunners. And I think that speaks to the fact that it is really well written, and who knows how it's going to shake out. We don't know.
No, we're excited, but what Mandy's trying to say is we do love each other.
Yes. Because I feel like some of it sounded a little bit like we were getting heated, and I don't think we were at all.
No, not at all.
Right. If you're not here and you don't hear our normal conversations with each other, then you don't realize that we are both incredibly, although if you've listened to more than one episode here, you probably already know we're both incredibly opinionated, and we're both very passionate about those opinions. And sometimes that's just the beauty of the show.
I think so. We're like peanut butter and jam. Lots of jam in the fridge.
We are all of those 14 flavors of jam.
Well, thank you everyone so much for listening. The power of finding beauty in the humblest things makes home happy and life lovely. So please seek joy in even the smallest of things and embrace the happiness that comes. I'm Becky.
Still Mandy.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.
Jessica Biel's back muscles.